A good signal that it's time to let something go is if you're procrastinating doing the thing. You're procrastinating doing the thing. Now, I want to immediately caveat this, where that doesn't mean that you're tired or you're moving slow and it takes you longer than expected. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about ADHD or other types of narrow, spicy approaches where you just have a hard time completing things. Not talking about that either. I have a lot of loved ones that deal with that. I get it. What I'm talking about is that you just don't want to do it to the point where it's just out there. It's amazing. And I'm a parent, so I have an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old, and a very active one at that, stay-at-home dad and all that. And it's amazing where there'll be something that my boys, they're both boys, my boys want to do, and they'll just spin it up. They'll come up with every single reason why it can happen. And if it's something they do not want to do, you can imagine it's quite the opposite. We never really change. We don't really outgrow that. I'm talking about kids, but we never really outgrow that. So if there's something that's on your agenda, there's a company that you're building, there's a person that you want to be with, there's a situation that you want to make real, and you're just not putting the energy into it at all, that usually signals that it might not mean anything to you now, or maybe it did at one period of time, but it just doesn't make any sense. And as I've talked about in previous episodes, it's actually okay for us to outgrow our goals. If you think about it, like, I'm middle-aged right now. Imagine if I had the same goals that I had when I was like a teenager. Like that would, I'll be getting clowned right now because we're at a different place. I'm at a different place. I'm sure you are too, compared to where you were 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, what have you. So it's okay to outgrow those things. What's not okay is to be in those situations where you're not contributing or don't want to contribute to this particular goal, but you keep saying that you're committed to it. Great example. I believe it was Don Cheadle. I recently seen Don Cheadle. I wish it was in person, but it was on TV. He was actually on the Team Coco podcast. It's a podcast by Conan O'Brien, the late night talk show host, and now, of course, he's retired from that and has a podcast. Great podcast, by the way. You can catch it on any of the platforms, YouTube, or of course you can listen to it on your favorite audiobook platform or audiobook podcast platform, audiobook. And Don Cheadle talked about actually studying jazz, and he was studying jazz, and he would play Miles Davis later on in his life, but studying jazz as well as, I think he was studying acting at the same time. Of course, he's a well-known actor in America at this point. And he was telling the story about, it wasn't Juilliard, but it was a high level music school, and how everyone around him was obsessed with their instrument, obsessed with the flute, obsessed with the oboe, obsessed with whatever. And whatever he was playing, it was a woodwind. So, if he played Miles Davis later, let's say it was the horn, and it might have been the flugelhorn. And he's like, I really like the flugelhorn. I'm pretty good at it, but if this is going to be my profession, like, I need to be told to practice. I need to be told. Like, I think it might have been his parents or whomever. Like, my parents are on me to practice. But then you got kids who, if you ever seen the movie More Better Blues, the Spike Lee movie starring Denzel Washington, and they talk about horn player, all about jazz. And like, if I remember correctly, he would sleep with his horn, the character. Like this is the complete Bring Your Worth collection. This is my 27th book. I'm not that old. Again, I just had a birthday. I'm middle-aged, but 27 books. I think that might be more than the years I've been an adult. Books are an obsession. And since I was younger than my kids, no one had to tell me to go and write. Ever. Even when I went to grad school, I have a master's in magazine publishing, and I was studying journalism, and like nonstop schooling, again, straight through grad school. So I was one of those guys. No one had to tell me Damon go right, ever. They might have given me some guidance or said, hey, you might need to write this way or that way, or use this particular technique, particularly with journalism. So there is a format, but no one had to tell me to do it. That's what Don Cheadle was getting at. He was like, oh, this ain't for me. Because no one had to tell him to go act, but they had to tell him to go play the horn or whatever he was playing. No one has to tell me to go write a book. No one has to tell me to hang out with y'all or to be on the TED stage. Definitely no one has to tell me to be a business coach. I've coached hundreds of y'all, several hundreds probably at this point. No one has to tell me to do that. If it's something that you're actually getting energy from, something that you feel like is part of your greater purpose, something that you feel like you're contributing to the world, then people shouldn't have to say, you have to do this. You shouldn't have to yell at yourself to do it. Now, there's a certain grind aspect to getting to this point. I didn't just appear on the second stage of TED, a handful of years ago when I did my first TED talk or TED style talk. I had to work towards that. But that work made sense because that's what I really wanted. I did want to do public speaking. All the grinding for I don't know how many years I was in school until I got my grad degree. I saw the vision all along that I was going to be a professional writer. Didn't know what kind, but I knew I was going to be a professional writer. So that momentum was naturally there. Now, again, the neurospicy of us and other things, sometimes things get in the way. But even for my loved ones or people that I coach that are dealing with certain neurospiciness, such as ADHD or folks that are bipolar and things like that, when it comes to that shit they care about, they don't mess around at all. And so if you're in that situation where you're like, I'm passionate about this, and then for some reason you're not doing it, that's a signal. You're procrastinating doing the thing. And the thing is, so many things today, the thing is that it's not like that thing is going to get lighter. It's not like that thing is going to get less intense. I get a nice little bag when I go fly to an event and I do public speaking. If I hated public speaking back when I was doing this joint for free years ago, me getting 4 or 5 figures wired to my account is not going to make me love the thing. Sorry, money's not going to do it. So if I was procrastinating, I would probably even feel even worse, because then I would feel shame, guilt, and silly because I have a family and I'm turning away this money because some reason I can't get on the stage. It's better if you're feeling that way to deal with it early. Vibe it to something that you actually care about. It's okay to let it go. It's better to vibe with something you actually care about and then show up regularly, consistently, and not have to push yourself in that kind of weird way than to fool yourself into being into something that you're not into anymore. Because eventually, again, the body keeps the score, and eventually all that stuff's going to come out, and that might be blocking you from your true success. See, now you got me on my coaching bag. If you want to coach with me, DamonBrown.net. Maybe I can help you level up as well, but I'll stop getting in my coaching bag for right now. A great book that talks about this, The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. I hope you both are well. Fantastic book. I have like 5 versions of this book, and I had to get a hardcover copy. I read it around the time that I was doing my first startup called So Quotable, when my co-parenting partner and I had our first kid. He just turned 11 this summer, so it was a while ago. I remember having an audiobook, and at the same time that I just became a startup guy and bootstrapping. So many memories. Yeah, I feel like my gray hairs came about 10 years late because it was a stressful period of time. It was a wonderful book, as you can tell, Daily Stoic. Stoicism is about, I view it as having objectivity of your life so that at every moment you can know what your priority is. That's all. Doesn't mean you're not emotional. Doesn't mean you don't give a shit. It's not saying that. It's basically saying, hey, all this stuff is going on and life is hard and chaotic sometimes. But you know what your priorities are. Every day, it is daily, so you can read it every single day. There's an entry for, what's today, October 2nd? We'll pull it out right now. We'll do it live. Entry for October 2nd. And let me get my fingers to work here. This is good paper. Most valuable asset. But the wise person can lose nothing. Such a person has everything stored up for themselves, leaving nothing to fortune. Their own goods are held firm, bound in virtue, which requires nothing from chance, and therefore can't be either increased or diminished. That's from Seneca on the Firmness of the Wise, 5.4. I could just keep spitting, but right here, in fact, I'll go and take a moment. It's very short. It's a brief explanation of that quote, or that passage as they call it, coming from Holiday and Hanselman. Some people put their money in assets, stocks, bonds, property. Others invest in relationships or accomplishments, knowing that they can draw on these things just as easily as others can draw funds from a bank account. But a third type, Seneca says, invest in themselves and being a good and wise person. Which of these assets is most immune to market fluctuations and disasters? And it goes on from there. I'll spare y'all the rest. And that's for October 2nd, today. And so I have regular meditations that I do, nothing deep or elaborate, but just a few minutes every morning. This is a great companion to that. In fact, I think reading it in itself could be a form of meditation and being present for that. The thing is that we get so tied up, myself included, in the title, in the idea, in the future that frankly may never happen. It's more exciting when someone's pregnant than when someone actually has a baby out, because the future, as they say, being pregnant with possibilities, allows our imagination to go wild. But then we have to bring things down to earth and say, well, this is actually life. There's a daily operation to it. The best way to do it, I found, is to ground yourself in the present. Because if you have, and we'll get into having long-term goals later on in the episode, later on the live episode. If you're watching the clips, you'll find it in the next series of clips here. But if you're watching live episode, we'll go ahead and get into it a little bit later. If you have this long-range goal, that means that you're going to be grinding it out, and your daily day is going to have a certain energy to it. But if you can't stand your daily day, your daily operation, it's going to be really hard for you. Again, I'm a parent. My kids are with me all the time, on top of me all the time. I would not have it any other way, but it also takes a lot of energy. But to be a parent, that's at least 18 years. And you got to know that from the outset, but you can't focus on 18 years. You have to focus on making sure they get up on time for school, make sure that they're fed, make sure they're being kind and thoughtful citizens. All those things are daily operations, hourly operations, minute operations, seconds in some cases. If you're parents or if you're helping in the rearing of a child, you know the deal. It's second by second. That's the way life is. And so if you're in a situation where you're procrastinating and don't even want to do the second by second, again, NGMI, it's not going to make it. And so you might need to change your strategy or change your goals so it actually works out in a better way. Hey, I appreciate the shout out from Amazon. Unfortunately, I can't share it on screen here, but I appreciate you. I am doing well. I hope you're doing wonderful over here too, over at Amazon land. A good companion to this argument is Drake, Kendrick Lamar, and J. Cole, three of considered the greatest rappers of this current generation that's up. Creative power strategy. The basic argument is say, listen, there are three ways that you can actually approach how you get success. These three are exemplary of it. The three can't be more different. I break down the strategy that's within 10 minutes. Over on Amazon, someone asking, how do you deal with an L or a loss when it comes to a relationship? And I'll go and plug that in here as well. I can spell today. And I'll throw your question in there. Thank you for the question. I don't see your name in there, but I appreciate the question. How do you deal with a loss when it comes to a relationship? Really tough. I've definitely taken my L's for sure. I've loved, I've lost. Again, you see the gray hairs. So I've been around for a little bit. And if you've loved, and been around for a little bit, you've also lost too. I think the number one thing from my perspective, I'm not a relationship coach, let's be clear. I do the business coaching, but personal journey, I think the biggest thing that has helped me when I've taken an L when it's come to a relationship is actually, I'd say two things. The first thing is actually having the experience. And I don't know if you've been on like the dating scene or been single for a period of time. It can be difficult to find someone you actually just get along with, that you're using the same language. I don't mean English, but I mean using the same language as far as how you communicate, being able to have that chemistry, whether that's physical or otherwise, being able to get along for a period of time. And I always viewed relationships, whether it's romantic or platonic, people are good friends, whatever, almost like we're marbles being tossed out, and at a certain point you knock into another marble, and you might be going at the same pace at the same time or a similar pace, and then you two or that group has a shared experience, but it does drift away. To paraphrase Seth Godin, one of my mentors, I adore him. He says that all business partnerships, but I would argue that all relationships as well, it comes from, how can I put it? It's almost like all relationships are going to end. Not to be too morbid about it. They're going to end because one or both of them want to go different directions, or one of them passes away. Now that could be said, and Godin was talking about that in regards to relationships or to business relationships. But that also applies to all other relationships if you think about it. Even if you're married, like you're not going to be married forever unless you're some type of demigod. It's not going to be forever. It's going to be for a set period of time. Which, in that sense, which leads to number two, is that then you become grateful for that connection at all. Like all the circumstances that are required for you to have a best friend, for you to have a chosen family, for you to fall in love, and for the person to fall in love with you too, for you to have a child. The amount of circumstances required to do that are insane. And so to get into your question, and to answer your question, I think it comes to having reverence and respect for the relationship happening at all. And if you are single now, then to reflect on what you can do to make yourself a better person so that you actually aren't required to be in a relationship to be happy. I know for the long period of time that I was single I've had a few very serious relationships, long term. Again, I got kids right now. But those periods in between, I actually developed myself. It's kind of like being on the job market and not having a job yet. So you go to LinkedIn and you take some free classes. A lot of the classes are free. Trying to put you on game here. They have some free classes over at LinkedIn. Really good classes. Again, some of them are my mentors that are doing those classes. So really good classes. You're sharpening up your stuff. You're learning how to become a better cook so that, whenever you do go on a date, then you can cook for your date, and their family or whatever. So there's ways that you can improve yourself as well. And the last thing I think is just understand that relationship with yourself. As I shared with someone recently, like I really love myself. And I talk to myself all the time. I respect myself. I'm one of those people that can be by myself. Love being in relationships, but I'm one of those people that can be by myself, literally, like, just being on my own and having my quiet time. And if you're able to invest in that, to build into that, then I think that makes it a lot easier to have those periods of time where you're not in relationship, number one. And also, if things don't work out, then the L that you're taking is a little bit softer because you always got yourself. And, person in the Amazon comments, you got yourself. you sound like that you're doing all right. Build yourself up. And when you do have that opportunity to be in a relationship, you'll be ready. So, good question. Big food for thought. Again, my name is Damon Brown. I am not a relationship coach, but I am an entrepreneurship coach. So that's more my bag. But obviously, I can opine on both a little bit. I'm here to help you as a side hustler, a solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV or listening, if you listen to the podcast, every Wednesday at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free. So, is there something you guys are doing or not doing where you're procrastinating and you're realizing this isn't the thing, that you're kind of stuck? Give a shout in the comments. Let me know. I love to hear, and maybe there's some insight that me or the other folks in the community can give to you. I appreciate all y'all listening.